What is up? How is it going? My name is, well, it doesn't really necessarily matter what my name is because it's all about anonymity. There's points and there are points. Absolutely. Yet, this is Pancake Marathon. What is your flavor of recovery? What is it about? You know, Essentially, and as that is essentially what it is. What is your flavor of recovery? And that's what it's all about. I don't have the right, essentially, to perfect the steps because they are essentially already perfect, and it does not matter about which way, shape, or form you're an active part of your recovery. That's really what it's all about. So this is why I have started this podcast essentially to be part of my life in the way that I can show up essentially, and just be an active part of my recovery, to communicate, essentially to pray and to meditate and all that good stuff. I know sometimes it's jarring and it can be overwhelming about this recovery thing. And then it can be so complicated. And yet that's the simple fact that it's not complicated. Recovery is so simple. And there's that slogan that, you know, that people are complicated. This is a simple program for complicated people. And yet, even then, it's like, what? What does that even mean? I just got off and I just started my journey of recovery, and I don't know how to qualify myself, and I don't know what any of this means, but I hear that all you have to do is have a desire. And so, there's that point right there. What type of desire do you have? Essentially, in a simple way of saying of, if you have that desire, you're automatically part of your recovery. And yet, simply to say, this is why I start this podcast, because I want to be an active part of my recovery. I do ultimately know through all of the experience that I've gained within recovery and just being part of my life, essentially, that it comes down to that simple fact that once you have that desire to stop using, you're automatically part of your recovery forever. You're always in recovery. It doesn't matter if sometimes those that have their experience of recovery as, oh, I relapsed, and that's okay. That is. It doesn't have to be part of everyone's journey. I accidentally relapsed, essentially. It wasn't my intent to use, but it still happened. I didn't reset my recovery time. Yet essentially it comes down to I still used, right? I didn't mean to. It wasn't my intent, right? And so there's that fine line, essentially, right there. Yet essentially there are points to what I would really want to highlight in this episode, of Pancake Marathon. Essentially of carrying a message, right? And it's kind of highlighting in the Alcoholics Anonymous book, commonly known as a big book, right? And there's points to that. Yet, it all kind of comes down to the design of their overall Alcoholics Anonymous book, essentially. And yet, I want to highlight that of in the area of working with others, essentially, and carrying a message, and not condemning somebody, and yet showing up for them when they may not be ready to. Essentially, I haven't gone out of my way. That's not really a thing in recovery. I don't necessarily think so at this point. I'm not too sure. It's just, I want to highlight the points of carrying a message, of not, yes, I want to highlight first and foremost that when I'm in a low moment, I'm not going to go to the barbershop and get a haircut, right? I'm not going to. That's crazy, essentially. That's where it's like the whole, in a sense of what is step one, that right now, my alcoholism, which is just a low state of body and mind that is hopeless, essentially. So any sad moment, any anger moment, alcoholism, essentially. And there's that point, the simple point of is it how am I killing myself today? Right? How am I committing suicide? Is it alcohol? Is it whatever it is? It doesn't matter. And if that doesn't make sense because it's not relatable of alcoholism, okay, so crystal methism or whatever it is, it doesn't really matter. That is so not the point. Don't complicate it. Yes, in a meeting, right? the group consciousness, the house rules, essentially. Okay, go with that, right? Don't shoot the messenger. Focus on the message, essentially, you know? Yeah, there's so many points, and it hurts to the simple fact of carrying a message to those that I've inspired. I've inspired, um, essentially, I could say three, if not countless others, essentially, right? But you know that so to give some context, you know, I've inspired three. Okay, one, I've inspired to the such degree of, you know, because they're using, you know, they're actively using essentially, and so you know, I've inspired one where it's they say, oh, you don't use, but you're hanging out. That's weird. Yeah, that's happened. And I've inspired somebody to be like, oh, you don't use? Oh, okay. Um, what is that about? You know, and then so then it brings me to the third one essentially, to where this is where the hurt comes from in a sense too, of like just in a sense of, you know, I showed up for that miracle. And sometimes, you know, there's a simple point where it's like you can leave after the miracle happens. There's no, you know, you're still part of your recovery. It doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter. If you're going to do more step zero research, basically, and go back to recovery, whatever, or the, you know, the traditional 12-step recovery, or even non 12-step recovery, it doesn't matter. You know, just be part of your life and let that hurt go, right? Get out of that hopeless state of body and mind, alcoholism, right? To the simple fact of this third one that I'm going to highlight right now, that they've been in recovery for, I don't even know how long, a long time, a long, long time. They've gone in and out, you know, in a sense of saying they are of what would be categorized or whatever it would be said as an AA zealot, right? Somebody that knows how to talk recovery and looks good on the outside, right? They have all their physicality of everything good to go, but their mental sobriety and emotional sobriety, because it's all the same basically, right? Keep it simple. Unless your flavor of recovery and what you comprehend of the God of your own understanding essentially is, it's a baseball. There's four types of sobriety, right? Then you start with your physical, then your emotional, then your mental, and then your spiritual sobriety, right? You know, but I think it's a simple program. Don't overcomplicate it, because emotional and mental take effect on the same playing field essentially. You know, um, and you know, okay, so this third that's been in recovery for I don't even know how long. Essentially, it comes to the simple fact of, though, that they've been in recovery for so long, and I inspired them to get back into it essentially, and they kept on trying, and they just didn't want it. You can't cultivate a willingness in somebody. You can't drag somebody along. You know, you can't, you know, go down with, you know, as a lifeguard. If they're splashing and they're taking you down, you let them go. And that's kind of the part that sucks. It it, it is. You know, it's a magical thing when somebody starts getting it. The spark of life ignites. And it just, it sucks. It sucks to have this happen. To hear that all they see is the hurt that they add. And that's what they're focusing on. You know, it's focuses your direction. And they're so determined to stay in the same direction that, you know, God, you know, good orderly direction. God's never too late. Sometimes you think that you are, you know. But that's why it's so important to have a relationship with your higher power. It really, really is. They see the whole entire picture. They love you so much, even when you don't. Sometimes, you know, that's what it's all about. Finding something that loves you no matter what. Maybe that's the simplest way of a understanding of God, you know, and if you're struggling in a sense of finding that understanding of what God can be, then use that. Something that loves you when you can't. You know, I've also heard recently that God is an experience. It's a moment. It's not a concept, right? You know, a concept is, it could be a doorknob. It could be something that's nameable. how can you name something that's unnameable? You know, it's a challenge, and so why have it be so challenging? Don't confine it. Don't judge it worthy only in this way. Don't arrest that thought, right? That concept, and stay there. That's in a sense of what I see step 11 is kind of in a sense of highlighting that aspect of what step 11 is to make progress. And you're aware of it because you put the work in, right? You prayed and manifested and all that good stuff, or you meditated. I mean, it was the same thing in and of itself, to simply say. And so it, I'm attempting to dive into this thought of carrying a message, and it just kind of hurts. It does. It sucks. It sucks. It's, yeah, to really highlight, because sometimes you just need the outside thing to really get to a point of understanding life. Step 5, right? Essentially, you need something other, right? God of your own understanding, and somebody else, and because you're not getting it yourself, essentially, to admit your wrongs, right? Basically, step 5, right? And so the third here, right? The one that's been in recovery so long, and they just keep using and using and using because they add the hurt, and that's all they are doing is focusing on it, to the simple fact of it sucks, because like I kind of liked them, right? And it's not that I have easy time, right? Who does? um Letting somebody in, and having self-respect, right? It's like it's not like I haven't been, active, in the areas, in the no square area, right? I'm just saying, right? um Yet, there's points where it's like they call me out on my BS. It's like, it's like, just a simple fact of how they just highlighted so perfectly that, you're good at helping others, and and so why can't you do that for yourself? It's so easy to get into cross addiction, and but that's what you're doing. You don't really see that? It's not that they say you don't see that, but it's like it's they're so right. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you do it. It's like, and so, um, but like, so I helped them out, and like, it just sucks to hear that they want to die, you know. But I can't do this for them. I can't cultivate an attitude of gratitude in them. I can't cultivate an attitude of willingness in them, and it hurts. It really does. It hurts so. It hurts. And so I like it's just these feelings are valuable that I have. Where there's that slogan, the saying, feelings aren't facts. And it's like, oh, okay, but they're valuable, and yet it comes down to the simple fact of I can't react because of them. I can't steal somebody else's peace of mind because mine is, oh, I don't even know right now. It's like, um, and yet, there's so many points to where it just sucks. It really does. And and so it's like, I help them out, and they wanted it. I inspired them to keep going and everything like that. It just sucks from the simple fact that they might not be there anymore for me in that way. And so like that's where I think the whole slogan or saying or whatever is that it's a selfish program. Even though Bill W never wanted it to be a selfish program. They wanted it to be a we program. You lose interest in selfish things and you gain interest in your fellows, you know? And so it's you know, it sucks. But you know what? That's step 12. highlighting right there. Being of service is like a virtue of that. Okay. And and what's a virtue? To simply say, it's what's the difference? It's like the short version of the Serenity Prayer opposed to the long version, right? That's basically a virtue. It's a summing up of something, you know. And the easiest way to use a virtue is you didn't use right now because you focused on that. You had that direction that you changed your focus. You changed the dial, whatever it may be. You stop trying to change the outside world. You stop trying to use the outside things to make that fill that void. Because it really comes down to the simple fact of looking within, changing that mirror around, and looking within. And so that's the part that sucks. When you do turn that mirror in and start working on yourself, stop playing therapist with everyone else and start working on yourself. Oh my gosh, I so get it. Oh my God, it's so much easier to play therapist. To be like, oh, I got you. Well, what words can you say? And I will fill in the blank of where you could go, and then like to play a good narcissist in the sense of saying, just fun things to say, of oh, when you come back, let me know. And I will reposition you, right? In the sense of the whole, narcissist kind of approach, like I never told you can move that way. I'm going to move it right back. You have free will. I don't think you have mind, so you don't get to make these decisions here, And so it see, that's the power of sharing, not holding it in. Because I know, I absolutely know from the bottom to the top, all of my heart. I like wear it on, some say you wear your heart on your sleeve. No, that is my heart. My whole entire clothing is my heart. Yeah, you just see the part of it that you want to see, that you're ready to see. But I absolutely am wearing my heart all over me in every action that I do. It might seem like I'm being a burden to you, that I'm calling you stupid because I'm not perfect in the sense of being a saint, how it's described in the literature. We are not saints. The point is, we are growing along spiritual lines. And so, it's man. But as I was saying, I'll put it in this way, sharing is healing. And a program is you. So share in a program so you can respect that program because you shared. And so that's why I know the power of sharing. I know the power of not isolating, because that's what sharing is. You didn't isolate. And all absoluteness of the simple fact of it is sharing is self-care. And yes, sharing self-care can turn into isolation. Really, really easy. And it's a balancing act. And some could consider your self-care as isolating. Because there are some points to where you don't want to be out of your head. When it's like, what? You want to, like, I don't, like, I've heard, of someone saying, I don't get why anybody would want to be out of their head. I love the solace aspect of life, and it's where it's at. Like, I never want to be out of my head. I don't get it. It's like, oh, huh, And so, like, that makes sense. It absolutely does. It really, really does. Yet, I want to ask them, in a sense of saying, can you do this alone? Right? Like, I'm right there with them, though. I love solace. I love my own moments of myself and doing my own thing, not having to, ask anybody anything because, well, what in the fridge do you have to offer me that I can't do by myself? You are not the top of the line, as I am. I am top shelf. You know what? Who holds the top shelf up? The ones that aren't me. right? It's like, oh my gosh. And yet, that's the funny thing about life is that I can't do this by myself. I don't really want to learn how to make lye and then make soap out of that lye and then be able to make a fancy wash machine that counts as a dishwasher because I don't want to take the time. And yes, it has to be really fancy because it can't break my dishes, right? I'm just saying, because I only got one at this time because I only can build one at a time, right? But I have to go plow the fields, and it's like, oh, M to the G to the H to the what H H H. Oh my gosh, right? You know, absolutely. Let go, absolutely. Surrender is everything. You know, and it's it's almost funny because it's like I want you to get it. I want you from the sense of I want you to get it is can I like transfer my whole entire aspect of my experience within just right now, bam, you got it, right? Did you get it? Did you get that memo? Because I sent it. I'm sending it like right here, bam. You get it? You get it? You get it? Let me know when you get it because I need to know, or I'll keep sending it. It's like what? And yet there's points to where I do feel better. I really, really do. Because simply to say this is helping someone, and I count as someone. I do. I absolutely count as someone. Now, is it going to help somebody else? I have hope. Ultimately, because there's something here. There is something here, and it only happens when you share. And it might seem like I'm going off topic in a sense of saying, but isn't it about carrying a message? That's ultimately what this started as. And it is, it just the sucky parts of carrying a message. To simply kind of say, and it really is that. It really, really comes down to that. The sucky parts that are carrying message, yeah, they kind of do. There are sucky parts, especially when you got those, like I've heard over, in a meeting actually, or the meeting after the meeting, right? The fellowship area kind of thing, where, there's a point where that meeting before and after the meeting, that's where the true healing actually happens. The true fellowship, or like, the fellowshipping area, time frame, or whatever it may be. Because that's really where it is. Because when you're in a meeting, you got the whole group consciousness thing, and you don't want to trigger somebody, and all that fun little jazz of, the semantics of, oh man, you're in an AA meeting, don't talk about living clean. Isn't it just okay to be part of your recovery? Well, yeah, but we don't want you to do that aspect of words. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. I hope I don't go OD because somebody didn't properly practice the principles and they put their personality in front of that, and because they want it, like, okay, whatever, right? It's like the whole reason why NA got started. It wasn't, and it's not like it was AA's fault, not at all. That's what Tradition 6 is kind of about. It was that group that's highlighted in Tradition 4, the first part of group, and then, or an AA group, whatever it may be, right? There's the difference right there. And that's how it kind of gets defined, or like highlighting of what 4, 5, and 6 is all about. And it's in a sense of saying, for this example of carrying a message, 4 is how do you carry a message, right? You focus on the good parts. You let it run unless it's devaluing or focusing on the pain, right? Tradition 5 is who gets to carry a message, or that it's highlighting that you get to carry a message, right? Basically, because or what a group primary purpose is, essentially, like you and your higher power as a group, group conscious, all of that as such, And Tradition 6 is that it doesn't matter what recovery program you're in, you don't have the right to become the face of that. And it's because of the reasons, and it lists the reasons of what are possible in that aspect of why you don't have the right to become that face of that recovery program. Because in actuality, that example of how that group within the fellowship as defined in Tradition 6, an AA group, the fellowship, which is essentially a safe place. It doesn't matter what level of it, a stag meeting, a men's meeting, a women's meeting, it doesn't matter. That's a safe place for you. Okay, let down your walls or open a door because you don't want to regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it, right? You just add a door. Maybe it was a sliding glass door the whole time. You could see through it, but you just didn't open it. You make a better, wall than a door or whatever. I'm just, that whole saying right there. And so there are sucky parts essentially about carrying a message. But don't condemn anybody for not being ready to put down the scissors at that barbershop. Essentially, how often had you gone and cut your own hair and be like, oh, this looks great, and and then you go out to somebody else and it's like, what happened? Did you get in a fight with the scissors again? Like, is this your first time? Like, I don't really know how you're fitting to society right now. You are, you're your own normal. And putting in their words, you're weird. Like, what? I'm weird? I'm just my own normal. I like it. But then, there's that whole fact of like, are you now have to, in society, right? You got to fit into the mold, and you got to do what you got to do by what they tell you to do. Don't reincarnate this will, right? It's, you're doing the wrong thing ultimately, but do you want to eat today? Okay, so you're probably just going to eat today, do the wrong thing, from the example of there's no recycling, right? Even though that's probably just a secret way of holding all the oil, basically. Let's make all those plastic. It's all good. We hold it here. I'm just food for thought, right? But just saying, to the simple fact of it is that if there's no recycling thing and you didn't like team effort it, don't start your own recycling thing, or don't expect anybody else to care, right? Don't take up space for something else because that's not how it works, right? Absolutely not. There's so many points, right? It's like, and yet, so you're going to do the wrong thing. You can't recycle at that point. At that point, right? It seems bad, but what are you going to make it seem good at later? I'm just saying, right? And yet, there's points to where I'm not sure how long this podcast is. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. Because I hope it goes forever. The podcast, right? Is to kind of clarify the episode of this podcast, which is just highlighting that you carry a message, no matter what. Because like I said in the beginning of this episode, I'm highlighting working with others, essentially, in the AA book, right? Some can call it the big book. Oh, it does. Those points, it doesn't even matter. Whatever. It's like, is that why it's challenging for those that are coming from a religious standpoint, that the big book, when they're religiously in, like, the whole, I don't like it because the big book refers to, the Bible. It's like, oh, okay. Is that another reason why it was designed and called the big book? Not necessarily. There's points to where it was just a whole design aspect. A bigger book sells better. The brighter the book sells better. Because when you actually look at the text, the size of the font in that book, it's not like it takes up everything. No. Oh no, and it's really great actually for notes. It was amazing. You don't have to carry many things to carry that one thing, right? It's perfect. I love it. But so I'm just saying, those points, right? But I just like a spiritual awakening, aha moment, as I touch base in this episode that, maybe that's God. It's an experience. It's a moment, right? It's a breath of fresh air. It's like levity, right? It's lightheartedness in that moment, or you're being too serious, Like there's that rule somewhere where it's like 62, basically, or where I read it from, of don't be too serious, right? Like, okay. Because I know when I'm serious, my character defect of discipline kicks in, and I start freaking out because now I have fear at the same time of one of my disciplines or character defects. I mean, and I'm like, oh no, things are gonna go horrible. You're not doing it right. Oh man, you're not top shelf like me. I don't know why you're not, because I'm around you. I'm perfect, right? So why can't you just act like me? Because what do you have to offer unless you're acting like me? I don't get. Okay, don't stop right there. You're acting like you right now. Just keep that quiet. Repress that. Put it in the back burner because later, go ahead and set your house on fire because it was oil, right? Or you threw some water or some ice in a fryer and it was on. Oh man, like right. Now it's time to use anonymity. Please do. This is your chance to shine in anonymity and just go ahead and apply that and stop acting like you because you're pretty effed up. As what a bee is, right? It's a burden. So those fire flames. I don't know. I'm just attempting to put it together. I don't have anything at this moment for that. I'm just saying. And yet, simply to say, it's simple like that. Absolutely. So overall, essentially, to sum up, there are sucky times when you get to carry a message. You don't have to. You don't. That's not like a thing. There's points like, oh, I just ghosted that past hurt. Oh, okay. Well, maybe next time when you're ready, just food for thought. Don't ghost them. There's points where I don't want to talk to you anymore unless you're going to talk about recovery stuff because that's where I'm at in my life. And yet, I'm not going to condemn you for it, but this is what happened in my life, and this is what got me through it. Essentially, I'm just saying, But here you go, right? Yeah, there are sucking times to carry a message, but the part when they start getting it, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. It's an amazing feeling. It's so much magic. Oh my god, I finally get to see that miracle happen. Yeah, I showed up for it. Yeah, and yet, simply to say, I hopefully I lined something up for somebody today. And ultimately, though, I find you find something that requires you to keep coming back because that's really what it's all about. The God of your own understanding, that peace of mind, that breath of fresh air, the levity in all moments of just being able to smile because you don't have to be too serious. I'm just saying, right? And so, and always remember, your shoes fit just right. You do deserve to take up space, and you know what? It's okay. Because it's okay not to be okay, and yet you don't have to just be fine, or feel that you have failed. Because your first attempt at learning was just because you felt effed up, insecure, emotional, and neurotic, right? So that fine feeling, right, is now you can turn that from that fail that you think you failed from the aspect of fear, false emotions appearing real or whatever, all those clever things to the fact of fear, face everything and rise. That's what recovery is all about, facing things and rising to the occasion because you showed up in your life. You stop making mountains out of molehills or the little drop of water into all the 11 of millions of the seas or whatever it may be, right? The 7 seas, right? I'm just saying there's points. And yet, thank you for being part of your life. That's really what it comes down to, So, and thank you for being part of mine as well. At the same time, this has been Pancake Marathon episode, I don't even know how the sucky parts of carrying a message, I think I'm going to call it. But who knows? Keeping it simple is everything. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yet, the next part, in this sense of this episode, until I kind of change it, but I don't know if I really ever will. I'm not sure, but this is the summing up of how I feel about recovery and why I'm doing it. Absolutely. Thank you. Have an amazing one. Or, smile now, smile later, but just smile. I'm just saying. Absolutely. Thank you.
I'll follow you wherever you go. Stay close to you, 'cause darling, you're my home.